Young Pharaoh. When I started doing my YouTube channel, it wasn't 30 days before I started getting little comments saying, you got to talk to Young Pharaoh. You got to talk to Young Pharaoh. Okay. Now, I had no idea at the time that you were Black, a hip hop musician, a martial arts champion, a teacher, and pro-Trump. Now, you know a little bit about me, and you've been kind enough to say you've been following my stuff, and you know that I think Cynthia McKinney's a goddess. And in fact, one of the things that you and I have talked about is, and I'll have this shown full screen. We've talked about how this cartoon lists all the older leaders, I should say, like Cynthia McKinney and Dr. Kathleen Creever and Reverend Bill Owens, and many others. What we haven't been doing is focusing on young Black leaders, adults, but Black leaders. And you seem to really jump out. And I was particularly impressed by Kathleen Cleaver's letter to the hip hop artists. Dr. Cleaver was really looking to the hip hop artists to be a cultural, political, economic influence on young Black people who are thinking about, do they want to go Sodom and Gomorrah, or do they want to go, faith, family, and freedom? So for my audience, which I guarantee most of them have not heard about you, but I have a number of people that have been saying, you got to talk to this guy. You got to talk to this guy. So I'm honored and pleased that I get to talk to you. So let's start first off and take as much time as you want. Tell us where you were born, how you were raised, how you came to be a hip hop artist, how you came to be a martial arts specialist. Just give us the backstory on you, and then we'll go into current events.
Yes. Before I begin, I like to always come, on everybody's platform in the same manner. So I like to come out. I like to say I want to come very virtuous on this platform. I'm extremely appreciative, of you having me. Anybody who's familiar with me, I kind of try to stray away from the word humble because it means to weaken yourself. And I don't think we should have to weaken ourselves, to interact. We should actually be adding strength to each other. So, I want to come in the realm of your strength with mine and say that I'm very appreciative of you having me. And just before I start, I do want to hone in on the fact that, once again, anybody who has been following me for the 5 years, they should know you at least by face. I have referenced you at least 3 to 4 times, 3 minimum, just to be safe. But I want to say it's closer to 4, maybe 5. I have done multiple PowerPoint presentations over the years in regards to a lot of the subject matter we'll be discussing in this interview. And I have directly referenced you. I've played clips of you. So anybody from my platform who's watching this, they'll probably say, oh, that's the guy he showed, and now he's talking to that guy. So I want to say I have a lot of respect for your work, and I have a lot of admiration for your work, because I know not only where it's coming from as far as frequency, but what it's intended to do. And so I want to put that on a record. Now, before I get to introducing myself and as far as my background and answering them questions, I just want to add to, I just want to add my opinion in regards to that letter to the hip hop community. What I want hip hop artists to know, or NFL players, or any form of, just Black athlete or entertainer based, celebrities, people that have huge amounts of influence. You're not obligated to become something that you're not. If you're good at football, play football. If you're good at basketball, play basketball. If you're a rapper, be a rapper. I don't expect entertainers to become political entities. But what I expect for entertainers or sports players, who I still consider to be entertainers, is to use your platform to direct attention to positivity just as much as you do negativity. So, I wouldn't go to a circus and tell the guy who's jumping through fire hoops, you need to go start watching Robert Steele and, advocating politics, because that's not what you do. You're good at jumping through hoops. But what I do expect you to do is, if you do 30 shows a month, at least one show at the end of the show, say, hey, everybody, the world's going in this direction. I would suggest everybody go take a look at a Robert video or a Young Pharaoh video. So my issue with Black entertainers is they have completely abandoned the psychological development process of our community, to the point where if it's not something that's going to actually land us in jail, or if it's not something that's going to convince young Black women to become literal prostitutes like Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, they don't even have an opinion. So my thing is, you don't have to become something you're not. But where is your natural loving connection to humans to say, hey, I see you're thirsty, there's water over there. So if I can, as a Black man, have enough sense to say, you know what, let me just come talk to every community, white, Black, Spanish, etc. Why can't Black entertainers have enough decency at least to talk to us if they're not going to talk to nobody else? Because I feel like hip hop does not just affect Black culture, Black households. It affects white households too. You got a lot of white kids that's doing a lot of dumb things because they're listening to rappers, and unbeknownst to them, these rappers don't really live like that. They're not really out here doing the things they're talking about. So I feel like if you don't want to go to jail for your music because it's entertainment and we respect it as entertainment, then at least at some point in time, even if it's just the end of a concert, even if it's just during the credit scenes of a music video, direct somebody to something that'll help their life versus just 100% destructional influence. That's all that's all I'm saying. I'm not here to tell people how to spend their money or anything like that. And now jumping into my background. This is going to be completely unbelievable to some of you, but that is what makes us great as humans, because we have the ability to expand our knowledge through expanding our awareness. And so I have got on this interview with you someone as qualified as yourself, strictly through self-determination and self-education, and doing the things people don't want to do, which is acknowledging my flaws and taking the time to actually slowly but surely unravel and unchain my true self. And so, before I go into my background, I have to let people know I'm not doing anything that no one else can't do. You won't be able to do it like me because you're not me, but I won't be able to do, what you guys do, like whoever you are, I'm not you, but we can all become successful and we can all become intellects. This is not an exclusive property. It's just something that comes with extreme discipline. And so for me, I feel that I fell in love with information. Like, I love information. Like when I get a book in the mail, my girl will tell you, or excuse me, my queen will tell you, that's when I'm happy. I read the back of the book. I'm all through I'm the type of guy I can go research the author. So I love information, and this is why I'm good at it, because my if anybody knows anything about neurogenesis, we know that the cells in your brain multiply themselves to become neurons in order to learn new information. And this multiplicating factor happens at a higher range when you're in a love frequency. So some people are really good at sport. They can tell you how many, what percentage LeBron shoots from, how many, because they love sports. So for me, the way that people can analyze sports is the way that I can analyze historical and scientific data, because I love information the way that people love sports. So what I did was giving you guys a background check that'll roll into my martial arts background, Muay Thai specifically. When I was younger, I grew up in a community that I did not realize was, and I personally would like to blame the Democrats. But if I may, but if not, I would say it was systematically created through corrupt, political means.
Where were you born?
Yes, I was born in Buffalo, New York, born and raised. Yes, sir. Or Robert, I don't want to, you're younger than me at this point.
Yeah, you just call me Robert, and I'll call you Young Pharaoh.
That's right.
So you grew up in Buffalo.
Yes, I grew up in Buffalo. I didn't live with either of my parents. I didn't meet my father till he was 13. My mother had psychological instability issues to where I didn't live with my mother. So I was basically foster home, family to family, up until my teens. And looking at that situation now, explaining it as an adult, I explain it from a state of understanding versus a state of victimhood. And that's what allows me to blossom into a mature adult. And the reason I say that is because I've been heavy into psychology, and I understand neurotic behavior, which is stimulated through chronic stress. And so I grew up in a community that has been flooded with guns and drugs and has been stimulated with immoral and non-virtuous behavior. And what a lot of people don't realize is immoral behavior, once habitually repeated, becomes compulsive or impulsive within your nervous system. And then this is what leads to mental illness. So a lot of the mental illness in the Black community is actually being done through the entertainment industry because we're being influenced to contribute to bad habits. And then what happens is we damage our nervous system through extreme exposure to constant stress because our activities are stressing us out. So when you damage your nervous system, your the neurotransmitters or the neurochemicals that get dispensed into your nervous system that tell you to feel certain emotions constantly tell you to feel negative emotions, because most Black people, we don't know Black history, let alone psychology. So we don't know that negative emotions are just warning signs to heal. So we're operating psychologically underneath literally the chemical influence of anger, envy, jealousy, things like that. So I basically grew up in a community where, mothers are jealous of their daughters, fathers are jealous of their sons, and it's just literal chaos. People is acting crazy, it's crime everywhere. A sense of security is literally non-existent. And all of this is happening because people don't realize that they're mentally ill. And they don't realize they're mentally ill because why would you think that the government or the TV will be influenced you to literally become a psyche patient? We wouldn't think that BET would show things like that, but it does. And so as I became, older or in my teens and just surviving, this type of environment, I've never been a wicked person in my spirit. And so my natural ability to hold on to just being a genuine person has always kept my mind sane. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because hopefully I can help somebody, jump that hurdle psychologically. And I'll give you an example. And this is going to sound crazy, but I got to be honest. Growing up, I had a deep hate for my mother. And I'm talking about, you might think, why would you hate your parents? I had a deep hate for my mother. And the reason I had a hate for my mother is because nobody as a child explained to me that my mother was just mentally ill and she wasn't able to be the mother that any mother would be to her child. So I grew up underneath the guise of feeling like, my mother didn't want her kids or she just didn't care. You know what I'm saying? So subconsciously, every negative experience I had, I just blamed it on my mother because I felt like I wouldn't be going through this if I was with my mother.
Yeah, this is not unique to Black people. This is a problem with all races.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And I felt like, I hate my parents. And I didn't realize until I became mature enough to educate myself that my mother couldn't love me because she didn't know how. Her generation failed her. So I have to forgive my mother. But I want people to realize we can't forgive each other if we don't understand. So I'm at the level of maturity now where, let's say I'm walking up the street and somebody, robs me and kills me, right? And that's extreme, but I'm going to use it. At first, I would have took it like, this is an ignorant, evil person. And some people are ignorant and evil. So I don't want nobody that's evil to think we're giving you an excuse. We know who's evil. But for the most part, if a 17-year-old robs me for my jewelry, my mentality now is you suffering inside. And you actually hurting yourself more than you hurting me because you don't honestly you don't know how to heal your brain cells. You don't know how to heal your literal nervous system to where you can think rationally. So a lot of people suffer from psychosis. And if you don't know what psychosis is, it's an extreme amount of stress that literally damages the emotional and mental aspect of a person to the point where they don't have a realistic grip on reality. And so what's happening in the Black community, I came to realize, is by us not being allowed to re-embrace our culture and heal ourselves post all of these slaveries, not just the American slave trade, but the Portuguese, we've been being basically auctioned off as slaves for 2,000 years straight, and it's still going on in Libya. So we have an extreme amount of nerve damage and mental disorders that we are passing down to each other genetically through sexual reproduction. It's like you take two crazy people in a mental institution and they have a child, you get a Joker, you get a Michael Myers. So we're not being allowed to heal ourselves in this country because our voices, the heterosexual Black man, not the LGBTQ, not the Islamic, not the actual Afrocentric Black man who subscribes to, cultures like I do, Egypt, etc. Our voices is not being heard. So it's basically like you have somebody like me. By default, I grow up in the ghetto because I'm Black, and I'm not really, an asshole. I'm not really an evil person. So, but I don't have a shot to live outside my class. So it's like I'm trying to survive psychologically and emotionally in hell. It's like taking an angel and then you put an angel in hell. I'm still gonna be an angel, but I'm just not gonna be as nice because I grew up in hell. So
let me jump in and just put in two little data points, because I've learned a lot from Cynthia McKinney and others, and I think you're part of my education. There are more Black men in prison today than there were slaves during the Civil War.
That's
and
correct.
The Black Panther group was a defensive neighborhood group that was fighting CIA and FBI predation on the Blacks. And one of the things that Cynthia and Dr. Randy Short and I have recommended is that the president become very aware of this and offer pardons to the Black Panthers who are still in prison, as well as the Native American leaders. Now, it sounds like the Black family and the Black church has been under attack. And I just want to make the point that there's a reason why white suburban women are all taking Prozac and Valium. Okay, they are very stressed out in their own way. So let me ask you to move us. We have to move on because we want to keep this within a certain time frame. What was your breakout moment? What was the spiritual, physical fitness moment that allowed you to transition from an environment that was harsh into being fully human?
Correct. And I'll answer that question in a speeded manner so that we stay in the construct of our time. When I went to prison, right, for everybody who knows, you've seen the video on my channel, I actually just completed 5 years of post-release on an illegal sentence with no violations. So, pats on my own back for that. But when I went to prison, or when I went to jail at first, before I went to prison, I was fighting a lot. I was just getting into a lot of stuff due to me being a young man from that environment. And when I started to educate myself one day in my cell, after like maybe a year and a half or 2 years of being in confinement, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. One day I was in my cell and I just had a moment with, my spirit guides. We can just, everybody can keep their beliefs. I'll just say my spirit guides. And I felt like, at that point in time, I was like, I don't really know who I'm talking to, but I know who I'm not talking to. So I'm like, whatever, angelic entities that are out there, that's who I'm talking to. So I didn't really put a name on it. It wasn't a specific. I just put an intent on it. And I literally just asked, that aspect of myself spiritually. I said, I'm not asking to get out of jail quickly. I'm not asking to pop out, because I was going to trial. I was facing 7 years. So I'm like, I don't really care if I blow trial, if I get the whole 7. I took a gun to trial that wasn't mine. I got convicted of a firearm I had no DNA on, no fingerprints on. I got completely railroaded. Right. I didn't even ask my, these entities to kind of like get me out of jail free. I just literally said, whenever I get out of this situation, I just don't want to go back to the lifestyle that I've been living my whole life. Just put me in a situation where I can live a righteous life. Because before I went to jail, I had 2 jobs. I was walking to work every day. I didn't have a car. I worked at Olive Garden and Family Dollar. I would get up at 5 in the morning, literally walk like 5 blocks to catch one bus, go to Family Dollar. Then I would get off Family Dollar at 3, and I would have to be to Olive Garden at like 5. And then I would get off Olive Garden at like 6, and I wouldn't get home till like 1 in the morning. So on my own, without any help, I signed up for college, and I went and got 2 jobs just to do a lifestyle change on my own, because in the back of my mind, I always told myself, I'm really only living this lifestyle until I can become old enough to take care of myself. So I want people to understand, most people that's in the streets, you know, it's not some, even though TV makes it look like, hey, we want to, it's not like that. Most people are in the streets are coming from DFYs, foster homes, group homes. Basically, you know, the community don't want it. I'm from a community where if I stand in front of your house, you're going to call the police on me. So it's not like we're coming from a loving community. So we have to kind of create our own family bonds. And then, you know, these entities in politics take these broken children and they give them guns and drugs. And what do you think happens with people that's out here? And
well,
so
they also turn them into a profit center. They move them into the prison system. They move them into the foster care system, and people get paid big money on the backs of these people. They're treated as commodities.
That's right. And so to conclude this, I had that conversation, and literally at that moment, the best analogy I always give people is like how Iron Man has that light in his chest. When I just literally humbled myself as a man, and I just said, you know what? I don't want to live like that. Now, while I'm in jail, you know, I'm gonna go hard. I'm in jail. I'm not praying here. But when I get out of here, I'm gonna be the person I want to be. I felt this frequency just come across me, and I kid you not, from that point on, my entire prison experience just became a tad bit easier. Like, I stopped getting into it with police. I noticed that, or COs, for correct terminology. COs started to treat me more like an adult. You like more respect. You know, they didn't really treat me like I was a wild, out of control young man. It was more like, hey, like the mister started coming in front of my name. And I started reading and educating myself more. You know, when they would raid my cell, you know, it used to look like a tornado came through. Now they would come move a couple of books and leave me alone. So when I started to actually humble myself and live according to that energy, my experience did change. And I know people think it might sound crazy, but that's true. That's true. And it's prison is prison. So I'm not going to lie to y'all and say it didn't get nice, but it became more respectable as far as my interactions with authority.
But the bottom line is there was an energy frequency transformation.
Yes. And it did happen. And with that being said, when I got out of prison, to speed this up, how I became a fighter and a musician, I told myself, I said, damn, I realized, even though I just did 3.5 years, how much of my life I missed. And the whole time I was in there, when I got out, I was supposed to be graduating college. So it's basically like I missed my transitional period to society, because this is where I'm supposed to be graduating college and then contributing to society. But I missed that because I was in a cell. And so I told myself, I'm just going to do everything I always wanted to do. And I started to, I literally just walked into an MMA gym. Shout out to my gym, Western New York MMA. Shout out to my Muay Thai coach, Coach Corey Combs. I literally just walked in and was like, I want to fight. And they was like, you want to fight? I'm like, yeah, I want to fight. And I walked in there and I just started training with these guys, some beautiful guys. A lot of good fighters out of my gym, Tony, Pat, Mick, Sal, Kate, and just a great staff. And I just, started bunching in with these guys. And that's how I got into Muay Thai, and I fell in love with it. Music has been something that's always just a part of myself and our culture. It's a spiritual aspect of Black people. We just using it in a toxic manner. But I've always used music to express myself. So I continue to, go down that path. In education, to cap this off, the way that I became an internet sensation was totally by accident. So I want people to know this was not, I'm not going to say accident. The universe pushed me in this direction, but I wasn't going here. What I wanted to do was I wanted to go to college and become an animation graphics design artist. And I wanted to create cartoons and then subliminally inject my mind into cartoons and to basically make children conscious through animation. And what happened was I got into an argument on Facebook about pretty much the same things I debate people now, religion. And literally it was like 400 comments on my post, and I was basically getting jumped on my post. And I said, I can't really respond to everybody through comments, so I'm going to do a video. And I give everybody this warning. I'm going to give y'all a warning now. I have went through multiple transitional stages psychologically in my life. So the farther back in my videos you go, you're going to hear something you don't like. I'm just warning you now. So have fun. But with that being said, I did a video and it went viral. It did 80,000 views in 3 days. So I said, oh, okay, let me try that again. And it was on Facebook. And I did another video called Spirit Diet. And this video was basically me touching on how when you eat certain food, you change your frequency and you can either attract or repel certain entities. So it's kind of like a garbage can. Like if you put fruit in a garbage can, you'll see insect life, but not like maggots and parasites. You only see that when you see meat and other things. So I was giving people the analogy, like after you smoke cigarettes for a while, you biologically begin to express that scent. But we're not thinking of our ethereal body, our biofield. So it's like a lot of us don't have good angelic beings around us because we don't make ourselves worthy of their presence because of our diet. So I was basically expressing in the video, it's like if you at a bus stop and somebody's musty, you're going to move. Even if you're not rude, you don't want to be by them. So imagine if you're an angelic entity and I'm eating fruit roll-ups and candy and trash, my soul stinks. So you don't want to be around me. So that video was called Spirit Diet. That video did like 70,000 views in 2 days. So I was like, oh, okay, let me keep going. So I actually blew up on Facebook like that. Facebook, as they always do. Mark Zuckerberg, as he's famous for, he takes it down. And so he deletes my entire Facebook. So I said, okay, let me make another one really quickly before somebody takes my name. So like within a 5-minute to 10-minute frame of me getting deleted, I made another one. And over 5,000 people just came and found me. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to another platform where I feel I would get the most resistance. And I went to YouTube and I started to repost those videos on YouTube. And here I am today through my psychological evolution as what I would like to call a polymath and an intellectual YouTuber. And here I am with you.
Wow, I am really glad that you honored us with that I don't normally let people talk for a long time, but this works. This really works. Now, there's so many questions I have. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bonhoeffer and Bonhoeffer's praise for the Black church and Black music. Is there any path at all from the traditional Black gospel music to hip hop, or are they two separate worlds?
See, and this is why this conversation is beautiful, right? What we need people who are outside the Black community to understand is you have two types of Black people. You have Black people that are still psychologically colonized, and then you have Black people like myself who wish to follow in the footsteps of my ancestors. And the problem is this: people like myself are being deemed a threat by society when we mean society no harm. It's just we're not given a chance to express ourselves. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we don't care about church. We don't care. Like Black people don't go to church. There are
a lot of Black people. Reverend Owens would disagree with you.
Older Black people who are still psychologically colonized uphold those. It's like Muslims, right? The world would think that we all support Farrakhan. I don't even like Farrakhan. I think he's an asshole, and I think he's a scumbag. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because by people like me not being able to express authentic trains of thought from an Afrocentric pattern, the world is kind of guessing what we want. And that is what I'm trying to eliminate. I don't care for a lot of hip hop artists, or I don't care for church. All I care about is knowledge, science, nature, and spirituality. And there's an entire community of people just like me who get no mainstream attention, who get no media attention, and who get purposely ignored because we would present a more healthy image of a Black person. And so when it comes to church issues and hip hop issues, the only thing I'm going to say is I'll allow the Black people who engage in that type of activity to dictate what they want. For me, I'm more centered in real life.
Okay, let me jump in here. This is fascinating for me. Now, Daniel Estulin has written a book called Tavistock. about
Okay.
social engineering. And in that book, he talks about how CIA took over the hip hop and rap industries and
Yes.
basically tried to nurture people who would do music that led Black youth into crime to feed the prison industry. What is your perception of how the management of hip hop has gone? And are more managers of hip hop white or Black? Where is the kind of outer shell influence? You've got the people like you that are actually doing it, but then what kind of influences are you dealing with around you?
That's a beautiful question, and I'm glad that you asked all the right questions. It's exactly like you said, and I'm not going to name drop, but I've actually had people tell me like, you can be signed like you're a good artist, and I can blow you up in 2 to 3 months, but you're going to have to add more drugs in your raps. You're going to have to add more sex. So, I'm honest. I want people to know that you are not going to get to a certain level in that industry unless you are talking about things that are what I would like to call mentally ill behaviors, but for latent terms, criminal behavior. So if you're not over sexualized, if you're not telling somebody to pop a Percocet, then you're really not going to be a B-list, A-list rapper. You pretty much got to stay independent. So I want people to know I know celebrities. I know rappers. Some of them I can call on the phone. And the reason you don't see me at that level or in that loop is because I'm not that pressed to be famous as a hip hop artist to where I have to say something that I don't genuinely agree with and that I know will destroy somebody's family, literally. So, it's true. And everything you just said is true. And I'm here to let y'all know it's true. And ask yourself this, right? And it's kind of everybody can ask themselves in their head. Ask themselves this question in their head. Look at where I built my platform by myself with no help. Why would you not sign me? No other artist has came to the table with a wave of people already. That's like me and you opening up a company and you got 50 million and I'm not asking you to borrow nothing. I got 100 million. And I'm saying, come on, Robert, let's get this project done. Why would you not work with me? So when it comes to the hip hop industry, everybody else, they build them up. They get them ghostwriters, they get them publicists, and they totally create an image for you, and they got to sell you. You don't got to sell me. I already sell myself. But since I sell myself in a genuine, healthy manner, nobody wants to work with me because the goal is not to profit exclusively. The goal is to profit while keeping Black youth psychologically destructive. And so that's what people are not understanding. Yes.
This is really important stuff. Do you know Dr. Kathleen Cleaver?
Not personally, but I've heard the name.
Well, she was married to a Black Panther, was a Black Panther herself. She earned a PhD. I consider her, together with Dr. Cynthia McKinney, who has a PhD in leadership and change, to be two of the top authentic Black leaders and having the added advantage of being Black female leaders. I think it would be great for you and she to have a conversation. In fact, I think it would be great for you to write an answer to her letter to the hip hop community, which you have a copy of. I think that would be an enormously powerful outreach. Now, let me ask you, a lot of people are saying that Britney Spears is an MK Ultra, that she has literally been mind controlled from the beginning and that she is a prisoner. And I've posted stuff on this, which I find very troubling and compelling. Have you seen a sense of people being controlled and sexually abused, or just publicized in a manner that pushes the sex, but they're not actually being turned into degenerates?
Yeah, see, the problem with people is they don't, like I said, they suffer from psychosis and they don't realize it. So they're not really in tune with reality. And by not being in tune with reality, they don't have a normal sense of discernment. So they gauge the truth not off what it actually is, which is facts, but based off how they feel. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because if you're a Britney Spears fan, or you're just a fan of pop music or whatever genre music she does, or any other artist, you don't want to believe that you have love for something that is corrupt. You don't want to believe that. It's like me. I used to believe that the white man was a devil. I went through all of that. And I didn't want to believe that Farrakhan was a piece of shit. And then one day I had to say, this guy right here is a piece of shit. And so it happens. And so when it comes to Britney Spears and other artists, people have to accept the fact that these CEO Mongols are Satanists. I don't care if you're a Christian, whatever. You're a Satanist on top of that. And they perform rituals which disturb the hippocampus part of the brain. So what I want people to realize is there's a process. Hypnotization, hypnosis, hippocampus is all interconnected. In order to fracture somebody's mind, you have to send an electrical current in opposition to the way it naturally flows through their spine. So energy flows down your spine. So when you basically sodomize somebody on top of traumatizing them, you send in this electrical current in the opposite pattern to where it literally slams into the brain and it fractures the mind. And then what they do is when they it's called the vasovagal process. During this process, when they fracture the mind, now you can insert a new personality in there. So what people got to realize with MK Ultra is, outside of certain devices and techniques being used, really what we're dealing with is we're dealing with hypnosis at an extreme level of trauma. So you got these celebrities like Britney Spears. I'm pretty sure she didn't grow up and want to be a Satanist. I'm pretty sure she wanted to be a pop star. But you get around these powerful people, you've never been taught to stand up for yourself your whole life. You've never been taught to tell somebody no. We're not really taught to be strong and be like, no, we're not taught that. And so you get around these people and they kind of literally peer pressure you into this cult.
So to support what you're saying, I want to point people to my review of this book, Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien, which talks about all of the Germans that came over, not only into CIA, but into the National Aeronautic and Space Administration. And they put mind control, they turned it into an industrial thing. And I think that mind control, people can also search for mind control at phi-beta-iota.net. And everything that you're saying, all of the stuff I have read backs up. Absolutely. I think we have a society that is very sick. It's a cheating culture. And I think you've touched on something. So let's talk about healing. Now, you and I have talked about different kinds of Black leaders. And I'm not going to fight you on, I have a huge belief in the Black church, and particularly Reverend Bill Owens and the 7,000 Black churches. I believe Farrakhan is a Scientologist. And he is not actually representing the Muslim community, the Black Muslim community. I think that the prison Muslims are being controlled in some ways. But you look out there and you see people like Kane West and Candace Owens and others, Cynthia McKinney, Carol Mosley Braun, and in fact, this cartoon, which we'll add up and show again. I mean, this cartoon lists people like Kanje Change, Omali Yeshitela, Reverend Bill Owens, Killer Mike. You probably know Killer Mike, J.R. Valerie, Glenn Ford, Kathleen Neal Cleaver, Pastor Randy Short. So when you look out there, you're relatively unique. I know there aren't a lot of people like you, but do you see any Black role models that you think the president should be talking to?
You know what? In the most non-egotistical manner, I'm going to say, outside of myself at this point in time, no. And the reason I say that is because what we need to do is we don't need to cure. Because a cure, even by definition, is an artificial means of something. In order to cure something, you had to first make up a disease. We don't need to cure, we need to recover. A cure by definition is an unnatural exoneration of something. So in order for me to cure you, I have to give you something.
Or nature doesn't something, yeah.
Right. Nature doesn't cure, it recovers. If you break your arm, you don't cure the break, you recover. If you catch a cold, you don't cure from the cold, you recover. So what we got to realize is Black people have not psychologically recovered. And just because you're a good person emotionally does not mean you are who you are supposed to be psychologically. If we go to any asylum, you have some beautiful people in there that are nice and they share, but mentally they're not in their original form of thought. And so what Donald Trump needs to do is he needs to talk to an actual Black person. See, this is the type of interaction we need. We don't need a Jesse Jackson and a Donald Trump. I mean, we need a JFK and a Malcolm X having a conversation. And so the reason that I would recommend myself is because I'm completely psychologically and spiritually decolonized, but I'm not hostile. I'm rational and I'm righteous and I'm logical. And so the reason I feel Donald Trump needs to speak with someone such as myself is because Black people need to be allowed to recover from over 6,000 years of invasion and trauma. So what nobody wants to acknowledge is that everywhere everybody is on the planet right now, they invaded to be there, which is fine. Okay, we you know it happened. But nobody's saying, are we allowing the people who suffered this invasion to psychologically recover on their own? And so what I feel is a decent, genuine human being that's Black but happens to be a Muslim or a Christian is fine, but you're not in your right state of mind. You're living underneath your colonizer's ideology. So I feel that for the group of Black people who are not colonized, we preserve our true history. We're like literally the last walking libraries. If somebody like me was to die in my sleep today, my race potentially could go extinct spiritually. Literally, we could go extinct. So we need to be able to, we need the same treatment that Indians get. And the reason I say that is because Indians are not even a real, let me drop a bomb. Indians right now are not even a real, we're the Indian. The word Indian comes from the word indigo, which denotes the color blue-black. Because when the British and the French first came to these shores and the Spaniards, they seen Black people, but they spoke Spanish, so they called us indigos. And then indigos turned into Indians. And so what happened was, while Black people in America were fighting with, you know, Frederick Jackson and all these Americans, basically we made a peace treaty. And we said, okay, for the land that y'all didn't take, you know, let us keep that and y'all can keep what y'all took. And the United States government said, okay, deal. And they created the Dow's Commission. And through the Dow's Commission, they created what was called the Dow's Rolls. And they told Black Indians for $5, you come put your name on the Dow's Rolls, and then we will, you know, that's your claim to the land and you can stay on the reservation. And so what they did was they kind of stabbed us in the back, and they let the white people at that time sign the Dow's Rolls. And so most of the people that are living on Indian reservations are not us. They are either Caucasian or Hispanic. They're not real Indian. And this is where the term $5 Indians come from. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because you have somebody who understands where they come from, but I have nowhere in the world where I can freely just express my culture without having to fight somebody that's there because they don't want me to do that. So my thing is, we don't want colonized Black people that's speaking on our behalf, whether they hostile or not. We don't want Black people who don't love our ancestors speaking on our behalf. It's just like hip hop. That everybody's not a murderer, everybody's not a drug dealer. So we don't want hip hop speaking on our behalf. Some of us like technology, some of us like electronics, some of us are into virtual reality. So yes, sir.
Sorry, and thank you so much for letting me jump in, because part of my job is to help interact here. So yeah. Half of Kansas just got declared an Indian reservation. There's a long-standing agreement that was never overturned. And so now Kansas is having to deal with the fact that half of the state is now an Indian reservation, even though they've built up all the white stuff. This is going to be very interesting. Now, you talk about colonized Blacks, and one name keeps coming up, Candace Owens, Candy Ass Owens, who you have slammed a couple of times. Why don't you give me your impression of Candy Ass Owens?
My impression of Candy Ass Owens, right? And Candace Owens, I know you know who I am. How are you? You know, I really want to psychologically just dismember Candace Owens because she is the epitome of what I'm talking about. She is a Black person who is not really genuinely Black. And the reason that that's dangerous is not just to the Black community, it's dangerous to non-Black people. And I'll tell you why. If you get a corrupt white person, right, who wants to not only finesse us, but finesse other white people, as we see the elites and people do, they finesse everybody. then you go get a Candace Owens. And I'm going to tell you why Candace Owens is critical. It's like believing in a creator. I don't really care what you believe in. As long as you don't believe in Satan, I know that you have some subscription that tells you to live righteous. Now, I don't have to believe in the details of your subscription, but as long as you subscribe to something greater than you that demands discipline, it's a subconscious force field of discipline. If you're white or if you're Irish and you are loyal to your Irish ancestors, you're going to conduct yourself in a way that doesn't dishonor your ancestors. If you're black and you're loyal to our ancestors, when I talk to you, Robert, I'm not going to steal. You know why I'm not going to steal? Because I would be disrespecting my ancestors. Candace Owens has no regard or care for Black history. She has no regard or care. I honestly don't even think she liked being Black. And so the reason that that's important is people might look at it like, oh, she's a coon, or I'm not even going to call her that. She's what I would call a double cultural agent, because she could come amongst me and interact with me without a genuine love for me. And then she could go amongst you and do your bidding without a genuine love for you, because she has no natural connection to your culture. So Black people who don't really know their history are not deemed as a threat to society. But if you look at society, the reason we're messed up is because they keep dealing with Black people who don't have loyalty to their history. So they're working like double A. You get a Candace Owens, you get an Al Sharpton, you get a Farrakhan, you get these evil people because they have no spiritual sense of loyalty. So let
me just jump in and point out that Candace Owens is of Caribbean heritage. She grew up in very white Stanford, very troubled, college dropout. And what I'm hearing is that the white people love her because she's dancing a Black song they can understand, and the Black leaders hate her. And Donald Trump seems to be relying on her. This is not a prescription for winning over Black people. And her latest stunt was to pick random Black people off the street and bring them in to see the president. That is not going to extend into going to a massive landslide. So,
go ahead. Yeah, I'm gonna say this really quick. I've already debunked Candace Owens twice on my channel for putting out false statistics. So what Candace Owens does is she plays two roles, and I hope Donald Trump is listening right now. What Candace Owens does is she plays the I'm not oppressed, I'm not a Black victim role, and then what she does is she comforts white America's insecurity to address systematic racism by acting like it's not there, which is funny to me because she became known for a lawsuit involving racism. So it was racism was existent when you wanted a check. Now that you got the check, it don't exist. And then for two, what Candace Owens does is she provides an imprisoned form of psychology that mainstream white America wants to hold us to. So what she does is she allows liberals to justify their unevolutional mental perception of Black people through people like Candace Owens. So what I want people like Donald Trump to realize is, when I look at Donald Trump, I know we're not going to agree on everything because we're from two different cultures. We're not supposed to, but we're men. And men, our job is to protect this planet. That's the job. That's our job. If I live in the jungle, anything in the jungle, I got to protect it. If you live where you live, anything in your radius, you got to protect it. If I come to a foreign land on my boat, I expect you to stop me at the shore and say, what's your business here? You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the world, right, I'm looking at it from a leadership point of view. What I want Donald Trump to realize is real Black men like myself are not a threat. We actually can become the biggest ally that you never thought you could have. If Black men such as myself, for example, if I had a country right now in a military, in an Air Force, I would be on the phone with Donald Trump asking him, do you need some help draining that swamp? So my main thing is what Donald Trump needs to realize is real Black men are not Al Sharptons and Farrakhans and Candace Owens. We are ready to lead our people. We are just not being allowed to. So my message to Donald Trump is, I'm not trying to overthrow America or no crazy stuff like that, but If we are, what we're attempting to do is recover ourselves. And we're asking that from the top down, the chain of command allow us to do that. If we know that, according to the FBI and according to my everyday experience as a black person, white supremacists have infiltrated law enforcement to abuse blacks, then we need to be able to make the distinguishment between black people that's actually out here committing crimes and black people that's actually just getting shot for reaching for a license. So with my, go ahead.
No, let me jump in because I want to support you on this very, very much. Matt Taibbi in The Divide talks about how we have two law enforcement systems in America, one for the rich and one for the poor. And the thing that really bothered me in his book was he talked about how under a black man, Eric Holder, in the Department of Justice, we took jail off the table for white people. And the law enforcement guys had to increase their numbers, so they started going after the poor. The same thing has happened with the Internal Revenue Service. And what really hurt me deeply in Matt Taibbi's book was he talked about how police in some areas were arresting black people for standing alone in front of their house at midnight for the crime of obstructing pedestrian traffic.
Right.
This is in the book. Okay. Now, the other thing we have is that too many of our police have been trained by the Zionists, and they are training our police to treat us as cockroaches. And because now white people are off the table, it's the blacks that are being treated as cockroaches. And even though this last George thing was a false flag, and I think it was completely fabricated, the reality is that black people are being abused by the police, particularly outside the suburbs, in the inner cities and in Chicago and so forth. So I want to draw to a close here. What do you think of the Biden-Harris ticket? I mean, is Kamala Harris an authentic black?
Kamala Harris, Kamala, you know, however we pronounce it, she's not even
Kamala
black.
Harris, that's a great name.
Yeah, she's not even black. So, you know, I just want to put that on the table. Not only is she not black, she's a liar. Okay, she said she smoked weed, listened to Tupac at a time where Tupac and Snoop weren't even out yet. And what I want people to realize is she lied because they think we're dumb. And what's happening is she thinks, political figures believe that they did such a good job on instilling mental illness in the community that all they have to do is appeal to our mental illness and we'll vote. So they think like Hillary Clinton, let me pull out a bottle of hot sauce. You know, let's talk about smoking weed. See, and that's because the actual spiritual system of black people is not being recognized. So we don't have no respect on a political level. And what's happening is, it's not just police brutality. It's not just politics. It's everything. The world is bullying people like me, just genuine black Americans. And then it's justifying ignoring that voice or putting a hand over our mouth through the image that it shows us on TV. So the police can come through, shoot somebody on accident, but nobody really cares because you see 50 murders from Chicago every day. So nobody really questions the conduct. Kamala Harris can get on TV and say, oh, I was smoking weed in college, listening to music that literally wasn't even published yet. And I'm not black, but I can act like a black person, a black woman, and nobody really cares because you see Love and Hip Hop every day. You see Meg Thee Stallion every day. So we don't have an authentic representative for uncolonized black people. So I think we need to start drawing the line. And I'm going to end here. Two things I want to end on. For one, when we draw the line, we need for black people to be able to say, are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? Are you Jewish? Are you Hebrew? Because if so, you don't speak for me. You are in allegiance with your conqueror. Now, I'm not beefing with non-black people, but it happened. You know, we don't like the witch hunts or the Christian Crusades, but it happened. So if you became a Christian through the Christian Crusades or the Spanish conquistadors, that's how you became Catholic. So you don't speak for me, but I'm going to respect your way of life. So first, what black people need to be able to do is we need to be able to get my voice to speak for black people who simply just want to actually embrace black culture. That's one. Then for two, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to let the world know we don't want to go to war with y'all, but y'all going to war with us. You're killing us through the food. You're killing us through the vaccines. You know, 800,000 missing women and children come up every year. Most of the children that Hillary Clinton was trafficking from Haiti are black. So nobody wants to acknowledge that we are still being pillaged today. And I'm going to end here on that. If the world does not want to pay reparations, right, it's two options. One option is the lower self option, where black people feel justified in becoming violent. The second option is my preferred option, the higher self option, where we be allowed to build ourselves up via our own intellect. So what I would ask Donald Trump is this. We're going through a pandemic right now. Now, me personally, I've been a businessman all my life, whether it was taxed or untaxed. I'm not going to ask you for no reparations in the middle of a pandemic, let alone I'm a man. I want to be able to pay my own way into the party. I don't want you to pay my way. So my main thing is I want to tell my kids I built a future. I don't like handouts. So my main thing for Donald Trump is everything we ever had was taken from us. And we still are spiritually sound enough to not take what everybody has gained illegally from them. All I'm saying is if the world don't want to pay reparations, back up off us and let us recover ourselves and then come to the table and build with the world. And I'm not here to say I want to employ drug dealers because I don't like crime either. I'm not here to say I want to uplift gangbangers. I
want to say I think Ricky Ross is a great entrepreneur. And let me just say for the record, I was in a movie, The Last White Hope. Ricky Ross was an entrepreneur selling $5 crack in Los Angeles because CIA was importing pure heroin into the United States through El Toro Air Force Base in order to enrich CIA and Blandón in Nicaragua. So there's all these nuances. I would like to meet and interview Ricky Ross at some point because I think he represents another slice of black that I think we're not looking at the black community in the nuanced fashion that we should. And I think you represent a very, very important spiritually sound. And almost when I hear you when you say I'm not Christian, what I hear you saying is you're really almost not quite pagan, but Mother Earth, natural, in harmony with nature. And the Catholic Church actually repressed the pagan religions because they were worshiping the earth and they were actually in harmony with the earth. The Catholic religion also turned Mary into a whore because they didn't want women in positions of leadership. So there's a lot of stuff to discuss here. Do you have any final personal message for President Trump, and can hip hop help the president win the mother of all landslides?
Yes. I'll answer that in reverse because my message to Trump is more important, so I'll do it last. Hip hop can help President Trump win the election if Donald Trump literally gets rid of toxic artists. See, we don't want to see Cardi B support Trump. We want to see Trump cancel Cardi B. Why? Because she's not black, but she's influencing millions of black women to become sexually deviant. And nobody's saying that. So what we want Donald Trump to realize is if it's not coming straight out our mouth, we don't want it to represent us. Cardi B and Kamala Harris is two of the same peas in a pot. Two non-black women influencing black women to not be mothers, to not be wives, to not be decent human beings. I don't like when black women are out in public not having manners, talking loud, being disgruntled, but that's the image that they grew up seeing from the majority of women that's not even black. So we want Donald Trump to to allow us to exercise our voice, to say that person does not represent us. And we don't want that over here. Now, my message to Donald Trump is this. I don't want Donald Trump to think that the entire black community has been brainwashed and that we all believe he's just some racist white man who's out to get us like Joe Biden really is. I want Donald Trump to know I am 100% up on game. And I know everything. Everything to what he thinks what he would think I know. And I'm here to let him know as a alternative species on a planet living with his species, I am an allying species potentially. And I want Donald Trump to know that we are building ourselves up. And I'm looking to build up my community in a way that only I can do. because the youth are so out of control, they don't respect the elders. So even if we let all of the Black Panthers out of jail, you know, good luck trying to talk to a 16-year-old in Chicago. So only I can do that because I'm closer to their age and I'm more relatable. So what I want Donald Trump to know is, as he sees people like myself, and I'm only actually going to speak on me because I only want to be responsible for me. As Donald Trump sees me building up my people, unifying my people, and speaking in strength, even though I have a huge cultural difference and I have a huge historical difference with Donald Trump, I'm not a threat. And if Donald Trump would like, I can be an ally. And what we can do is, if we are allowed to recover real conscious Black people who and embrace our ancestors, we can bring a positivity not just to this country, but to the world. And I'm going to end here. Let's talk about natural resources. We know that most of the resources are in Africa. We know that. We know that there's lawsuits against all of these tech companies for, you know, child mining. Now, for me, I look at that as, you know, those is my babies over there being extorted by colonizers. But I know that Donald Trump, to my knowledge, is not one of those evil non-Black entities. And then I also know that there are corrupt, evil Black entities in Africa in politics. So me and Donald Trump have two goals in common. He want to drain his swamp. I want to drain mine. So what I'm proposing to Donald Trump is, let me build my people up underneath non-threatening circumstances for being a Black man that's not colonized. And we can help each other drain each other's swamp. And we can take this world into a better future, because I'm a genius and I don't care what nobody say. And Donald Trump is a genius in his area. And if we combine, we can literally bring Black Panther and Captain America to life. We can literally bring JFK and Malcolm X to life. So I'm not saying that I just want the same power and the same status as Donald Trump because he's the president and I respect the chain of command. What I'm saying is, as I continue to rise in the ranks within my community and I continue to develop as a businessman, as I begin to get on Donald Trump's radar or any radar of law enforcement, I don't want them to see me as a threat. I want them to see me as somebody who is not a patriotic American. I'm a Black man, but I love white patriotic Americans. I understand what they fighting for because on my side of the veil is what I'm fighting for. And I love to fight so much, I'm willing to help y'all drain the swamp as I'm doing. All I ask is that I be allowed to drain my swamp, and then we can ally as nations and bring our people to a beautiful state of existence. And that is my message to Donald Trump.
We're going to stop there. God bless you, young Pharaoh. God bless all Americans of all colors, and God bless the President of the United States and the First Lady of the United States. Thank you so much for a truly enlightening engagement.
Much love to you. Thank you for having me. As we go, I tell everybody, even if you don't like the content, still hit the subscribe button on this channel. Just don't hit the bell because we got to support real people because we know the mainstream ain't going to do it. Thank you for having me.
We will talk again. Bye-bye.